Yesterday afternoon, my dad called me to tell me that some friends were going over to Hima Mom's house for dinner, and they wanted me to join them. And he's been doing this more and more lately. He calls and, hey, we got some friends coming through town, and you should come hang out with us. And last night it made sense because I know the people, right? It's people that I've known for a really long time. It would have been great to catch up, but I'm a very popular guy and already had plans. That's not funny. But sometimes he will reach out to us, and I was talking to my sister about this recently. He'll reach out to us and say, hey, this random person that you've never met before is passing through town. It'd be really great if you would come and hang out with us. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. But again, I'm very popular and already have plans. Now, it might seem sort of strange, right, for my dad to do this, but he knows the people that he's visiting with. He obviously knows me, and he wants us to know each other, right? He wants to bring each of us into relationship with one another. He wants to share the people that he loves with other people he loves, right? Now, I love St. John, the gospel writer. I was baptized at a church named after him. I was ordained at a church named after him. I served at a church named after him. And then I had a mission chapel named after him. He's wonderful, but sometimes he can be very wordy and very circular and very confusing. Luckily, that is not the case today. Today, he's very straightforward and very extraordinary. Right? So in the gospel today, we hear these wonderful lines. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father loves me, so I also love you. As the Father loves me, so I also love you." Now, those of us who grew up in the church, Catholic, Christian, we've probably heard this a few times before. And it can be tempting to just sort of breeze over them because they are very familiar to us. But one theologian says that we should never be able to read the scriptures without being constantly amazed. And so we should spend time praying with this quote. As the Father loves me, so I also love you. And then John goes on in his first letter, which we heard from today in the second reading, and he says this, "Beloved, let us love one another, because love is of God. Everyone who loves is begotten by God and knows God." Again, this is something that we could ponder the rest of our lives, and if we really thought about it, our heads would probably explode because it is that amazing, right? Now, what is being said? Everyone who loves is begotten by God. And when I read that this week, I thought to myself, you pray the creed, and you know that in the creed we say these words. We say that God, that Jesus, is the only begotten Son of God. Jesus is the only begotten Son of God, and yet St. John, in the scriptures, which we believe are inspired by God, so would not contradict anything God says, he says that everyone who loves is begotten by God. So what's going on? Well, there's a very subtle sort of indicator as to what's going on, and it is one capital letter. Very easy to miss. One capital letter. So when we talk about Jesus being the only begotten Son of God, it's a capital B in begotten. Whereas when John speaks of us as being begotten, if we love, it's a lowercase b. Well, this very subtle difference points to something a little bit more explicit. That Jesus, the Son, is begotten by God by his very nature. He has been begotten by God for all eternity. He never was not begotten by God because he never didn't exist, and he was never not in the Father-Son relationship to the Father. So he is eternally, by his very nature, begotten by God. We, on the other hand, little b begottens, are begotten by grace, right? By God's graciousness to us. And this happens through our baptism, that we are brought into this relationship with God, that we become like Christ, we become other Christ, which you've heard me say a few times during this Easter season. And so as other Christ, we then can be viewed as those begotten by God. Everyone who loves is begotten by God. And so baptism brings us not just to sort of see the relationship of the Trinity from afar, but it brings us into the inner life of that relationship. That we now get to partake of the loving relationship of the Godhead. And so we can read these lines as they apply to us. As the Father loves me, so I also love you. And then we can ask the question, well, how does the Father love the Son? The Father loves the Son completely. He gives everything to the Son. He holds nothing back. And so the Son loves us as he is loved by the Father, which means that he loves us completely. He holds nothing back. And if we ever start to doubt this, we have a very stark reminder of this reality in the crucifix. That Jesus holds nothing back from us. That he gives his very life for us. That he has been loved that way by the Father, and he has no other option, right, but to love us in the same way. That he pours himself out completely for us. And this is why St. Paul could write this to the Romans. He who did not spare his own Son, but handed him over for us all, how will he not also give us everything else along with him? And so when we begin to doubt God's goodness to us, well, will God really take care of this thing or give me this? Or, well, he's given us the most costly thing he could. Why would he hold anything else back? Why would he hold anything else back? So how do we remain in this love? Right? This is a question something that is brought up in the gospel too, right? That we are to remain in this love. Not just to sort of taste it, to see it a little while and then go on, but to stay in it. And how do we remain in it? Well, Jesus tells us in the gospel that we remain in his love if we keep his commandments. Keep my commandments and you will remain in my love. Right? That we are to love one another as Jesus has loved us. Right? This is the great commandment. This is what everything boils down to. And so if we want to remain in the love of Jesus, then we have to love others around us. And we have to love others around us the same way that the Father loves the Son, and the same way that the Son loves us. We have to love completely. We have to give everything, right? Holding nothing back. And this, I think, is the point of that little story that I told at the beginning. Right? That my dad, in his old age, as he grows in wisdom, which I'm thankful for, because when I was a kid, he didn't know anything. But as he grows in his wisdom, right, he is showing more and more the love of God. Because he wants to draw everyone into the love that he has. Right? Come meet this person that you have no idea who they are, because I love them. I see something good in them, and I want to share that goodness with you. And so we pray that more and more we would come to experience the love that the Father gives to the Son, and that the Son gives to us. And having experienced that love, that more and more we would be able to love the way that we have been loved. As the Father